Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Shriek, if you know what I did last Friday the 13th. So, I have seen this movie once before. I randomly picked it up on DVD quite a few years ago. Not quite a few, like probably 3 or 4 years ago. And the first time I watched it, I thought it was pretty decent. After rewatching it, I still think this is a decent little movie. So for people who are unaware of this movie, it's a horror parody. It mainly parodies Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And this movie, it's eerily similar to the first Scary Movie, and it actually came out in the first year. But this movie has like a lot lower budget than something like Scary Movie, and it didn't get a theatrical release or anything. I believe it debuted on TV, and then it got it was released on video. So basically, this movie, it could easily be compared to Scary Movie. It's basically like a Dollar Tree version of Scary Movie, or the poor man's Scary Movie. But that's not me trying to take away from it. It is what it is. It's not, of course it's not on par with Scary Movie. Scary Movie is, that's like a piece of pop culture. That's an iconic movie. I think it's a classic. So, going into this movie, don't think it's going to be as good as Scary Movie, but I think it's a very serviceable horror parody, and there's quite a lot of funny moments and quite a lot of little clever, creative moments. So I dig it overall. Jumping into a plot summary, the movie starts out, and there's this girl. She is killed by a mass killer. I mean, she's not really killed by the killer. She she dies because of an accident, which pretty much everyone in this movie does. But anyways, people in this small town, they're worried because there's this murder and there's this mass killer on the loose. So there's this reporter who is looking into it. There's also this cop, Dowie, played by Tom Arnold. He's looking into the murder and the following murders. So everyone's on edge, and there's this main cast of teenagers at this school. They are being sent letters by the killer, and the letters are saying that the killer knows the secret about the kids. So the kids are growing more and more paranoid. The killer knows something about them. He's after them. So they're trying to survive. They eventually go to this secluded house for a party. And that's where most of the climax of the movie takes place. And while they're at this party, more and more of them are getting killed. And the remaining main characters are they're mainly trying to find out the identity of the killer and eventually stop the killer. So that is the plot summary. The first point that I want to address is this little sequence that I like. It's like a sequence within the opening sequence, and it's kind of like the origin of how the killer gets his mask in this movie. So initially the killer is wearing a white hockey mask, but then he smokes a cig, and his mask, his hockey mask, lights on fire, and it turns into a ghost face mask, which I just think that's so cool. I think that's really clever and creative because, I mean, if you think of it, a ghost face mask kind of does look like a dilapidated, melted white hockey mask in a way. Like you kind of gotta, like, it's kind of a stretch, but it kind of does look like that. Not 100%, but it slightly resembles a melted hockey mask. So I thought that was really clever, and I like how they tied two iconic horror masks together and gave the killer like a cool origin for his mask. It's like he had the hockey mask, it melted, it turned into a Scream mask. So I thought that was really cool, really clever, and that's always stuck in my head. Whenever I think about this movie, I always think about that little sequence. So I really love that. Jumping into my next point, I just want to go over some standout funny moments. So first things first, once again, I'm referencing the opening sequence. There's this girl, and she's getting called by the killer, kind of like Scream. And the killer's asking her, like, hey, what movies do you like? What movies are you going to watch? And she just lists, like, a bunch of adult films, so I thought that was funny. Another funny aspect of this movie is this running joke. There's this main kid, this main character, and his name's Bonner, but everyone calls him Boner, and he's like, my name's not Boner. All the stuff surrounding his name is pretty darn funny. It's like a simple little gag, but I don't know. I always laugh at that. Maybe I'm a stupid dummy. Maybe I'm a simpleton, but I think that's funny. Another thing that I really like is Artie Lang makes an appearance, and he's this swim instructor, and he's like at this indoor pool, and he's giving the kids pretty much like swimming lessons, and he's just like smoking a cig at this indoor pool around these kids. And then Bonner, he has to get like mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and he gets an erection while that's happening, and everyone's laughing at him. There's like all these close-ups of Artie Lang's character laughing at him, and he's just making this like crazy face, and he's just laughing maniacally. So I liked all the stuff surrounding Artie Lang, even though he only had a small part. There's this one character, his name's Slab, he's played by Simon Rex, and there's like this running joke where he's stupid, and there's this one instance where he tries to like read the note that the killer sent him, and he's just like struggling, he can't read, and he's just like huffing and puffing and making all these crazy faces. That is super funny. And then there's another funny instance with this character. So all the main characters are having lunch together, and Slab is drinking a Jack Daniels juice box. I thought that was really funny. And then later on in the movie, there's like this pizza guy gets with a reporter, and basically Tom Arnold's character Dowie, he had this like, he was trying to get with the reporter the whole movie. They had this like budding romance, but like the pizza guy just steals the reporter from him. So I'm just gonna like say the line like in an appropriate way. I don't want to say the actual line on YouTube, but basically Tom Arnold's character Dowie, he's like, man, pizza guys get all the poontang. So I don't know. I just thought that line was pretty darn funny, and yeah, those are mainly all the funny little lines or funny little sequences that I wanted to address. There was some other stuff, but those are like the main things that I always remember and that I think are pretty funny. Moving on, like I said, this movie does parody I Know What I Know What You Did Last Summer, and so there's this like recurring segment where the characters get like a note from the killer, and they recall this event where they are like drunk driving and they hit a fake deer, and they recall some secret that they have kept and that like the killer knows, and they all have different secrets, and they're like really funny because it's not anything crazy like they killed someone. It's like one example is like the one girl, she's having sex and she removes like the do not remove tag from the bed, and then there's this other instance where Simon Rex's character, he's like smoking his relative's ashes. So all the secrets that these like kids recall, they're like really funny secrets, and I mean, smoking your relative's ashes is kind of bad, but the other ones they're like really like minuscule. Like the one girl like forgets to give her grandma laxatives. It's like funny stuff like that. So I like that recurring, like the recurring segment where it's parodying I Know What You Did Last Summer. And basically, what in that segment where it's parodying I Know What You Did Last Summer, there was there's this recurring thing where whoever is recalling the event, they have this heightened version of themselves where they like okay, Slab is really like stupid throughout the movie, but when he's remembering these events, he's like super sophisticated and he's smoking a pipe and he's like super articulate. Or like Bonner, when he's recalling the events, he's like really cool and smooth and suave, even though he's like a total goober in real life. So I like that aspect of it too. And then something else that I want to get into that I think is interesting too is, you know, Simon, like I said, Simon Rex stars in this, and he's in Scary Movie 3, 4, and 5. So I think that's kind of interesting that he's in this pretty much like the poor man's version of the first Scary Movie, and then he went on to actually be in some movies in the actual Scary Movie franchise. So that's pretty darn cool. And you know, I've said this in other videos, I'm a big Simon Rex fan, so it's cool to see him. He was one of the funniest characters. Another sequence that I liked was there's this character Martina, and she, like, when they get to the secluded house when they're having the party, instead of going over the horror movie rules like Randy and Scream, she goes over the parody movie rules. So I really like that. I thought that was pretty darn clever, pretty darn fun. But yeah, I pretty much went over all my standout moments and likes. Now I'm going to jump into some dislikes. So one of my dislikes is that there's some dated references. So an example of that is there's this instance that's it's basically parodying like the show Pop-Up Video that was on VH1 from 1996 to 2002. I'm not familiar with that show, and I never even, like, the first time I watched this movie, I didn't even know what that whole sequence was, like what the parody was supposed to be. So yeah, I feel like that's like a dated reference that, you know, like people today aren't gonna get. I didn't get it until I looked it up after the fact. But yeah, some of the references in this movie, they're pretty dated, and I just did not get what they were trying to parody. So I feel like younger people today, like, there's some stuff in this movie that they just might not might not get, and it might, you know, hinder their enjoyment of the movie. Also, like, a lot of the comedy in this was hit or miss. I mentioned a lot of stuff that I thought was really funny, but some of the jokes really do fall flat, and the comedy's not extremely consistent. There are some funny moments, but the comedy's kind of sporadic. It's like there'll be like a good joke, but then there'll be like 3 bad jokes. So the comedy is hit or miss. Also, some of the gags, they went on way too long, and also some of the slapstick just didn't work for me. I'm a fan of slapstick, but some of the slapstick in this, it just, I don't know, it just wasn't funny in my opinion. So a great example of that is there's this, you know, when the main characters are at this secluded house, the killer is in the garage with this girl, and she's just like throwing random stuff at the killer, and it's like all these like funny objects, and it's like she'll just throw random stuff at the killer, and it goes on for like a super long time. That's a great example of, you know, just a gag that it went on too long, where I was like, okay, like, I get it, this, it's not really funny, but it's not going anywhere. Like, I'm like, you could like cut it off. And then yeah, just, it wasn't like this, like slapstick is I don't know. Slapstick's hit or miss for me already. So like a lot of the slapstick in this, it was just it was just like too silly, too goofy, and it didn't work. Like they weren't doing anything different with it. It was just like basic, like rudimentary, like very simple slapstick, and it just I don't know. It didn't do it for me. So yeah, that's my last dislike. So now I'm gonna jump into my recommendation. I even though I was just doing my dislikes, like I said, overall I think this movie is decent. And I would recommend this movie. I think if you're a fan of the first Scary Movie or the Scary Movie franchise, I think this is worth checking out. Don't go into it thinking it's going to be as good as Scary Movie, but I think it's a serviceable, decent little horror parody. So yeah, I would recommend checking it out. It's free on Tubi right now, and that has been my review of Shriek, If You Know What I Did Last Friday the 13th. Thank you all very much for watching, and peace out.